The soft hum of quantum processors filled the massive monitoring chamber as streams of data cascaded across holographic displays. Director Park Do-Won stood motionless, his aged eyes fixed on the central screen where Earth's transmission patterns had always danced in vibrant colors. For centuries, those patterns had been a constant, humanity's endless chatter echoing across the cosmos. But now, those familiar waves had flatlined. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering, stretching several stories high within the Galactic Communications Hub. Thousands of sensors monitored broadcasts from every corner of known space, but Earth had always been special. Humans never stopped talking, never stopped sharing, never stopped reaching out into the darkness between stars. Their signals had become the heartbeat of galactic communications. "Director, I'm running another diagnostic," Senior Analyst Kim Jia called out, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. Her fingers moved with practiced precision across the neural interface, sending commands through the quantum network. The holographic display responded instantly, showing cascading lines of data that confirmed what they already knew. Do-Won remembered his first day at the hub, nearly 40 cycles ago. Earth's transmissions had fascinated him then. Endless streams of entertainment, news, personal communications, and data exchanges. The humans broadcast everything from their simplest thoughts to their greatest achievements, filling the void with their stories and songs. "Sir," Jaya's voice cut through his memories, "I've completed the 4th diagnostic. All our systems are functioning perfectly." The silence. She paused, double-checking her readings. "It's coming from Earth itself. They've simply stopped broadcasting. All of them. Everywhere." Other analysts in the chamber had stopped their work, turning to watch the main display. Earth's signal line remained flat, a sight none of them had ever witnessed before. The silence felt wrong, like a missing heartbeat in the galaxy's rhythm. Do-Won activated his neural link, connecting directly to the hub's emergency protocols. "Begin immediate wide-spectrum scan of the Sol system. Priority 1. His commands triggered a cascade of new holographic displays, each focusing on different aspects of Earth's solar system. "Deploy the quantum probes," he ordered, his voice carrying the weight of authority earned through decades of service. "I want eyes on Earth within the hour." The chamber erupted into controlled chaos as his team executed his commands with practiced efficiency. Messages flew out across the galactic network, alerting the Council to the situation. Do-Won knew the political implications would be enormous. Earth, despite its relative technological infancy, had become crucial to galactic society. Their creativity, their persistence, their endless innovation had earned them a special place among the stars. The first images from the quantum probes arrived 3 hours later, displaying on the main screen in crystal-clear detail. The room fell silent as the footage played. Earth's cities still stood, their towers reaching skyward just as they had yesterday. Traffic systems continued to function, directing vehicles that no longer existed. Power grids hummed with energy, feeding homes and businesses that stood empty. "Pan to population centers," Do-Won commanded, his voice barely a whisper. The probes obeyed, showing empty streets in New York, vacant parks in Tokyo, deserted squares in London. Everything was intact, pristine even, but utterly devoid of human life. The diplomatic vessels arrived 12 hours later, confirming what the probes had shown. Earth had not been attacked. There were no signs of violence, no evidence of mass exodus by conventional means. Billions of humans had simply vanished. Jaya's voice broke the stunned silence in the chamber. "Director, you need to see this." She transferred her display to the main screen, showing footage from the lunar surface. There, carved into the face of the moon in letters large enough to be seen from Earth's surface, was a message that would change the galaxy forever. "We have evolved." Do-Won stared at those 3 simple words, understanding dawning in his mind. This wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. Humanity hadn't disappeared, they had transformed into something beyond their current understanding. The silence wasn't a death knell, It was the quiet that comes before a revolution. He opened a channel to the Galactic Council, knowing that this would be remembered as the moment everything changed. As he prepared to make his report, Do-1 couldn't help but wonder if humanity had been planning this all along. Had their endless broadcasts been a smokescreen, hiding their true development from watching eyes? Had they achieved something that the rest of galactic civilization had never even dreamed possible? The silence of Earth echoed through the cosmos, but it wasn't the silence of death or defeat. It was the silence of transcendence, and the galaxy would never be the same. Lee Tay-Rim stood before the Galactic Council, her heart pounding as she faced the assembled representatives of over 1,000 worlds. The emergency session had been called within hours of Earth's silence, and now the massive chamber buzzed with nervous energy. Ancient species that had explored the stars while humans were still learning to make fire sat alongside younger civilizations, all united in their concern over Earth's disappearance. The council chamber itself reflected the gravity of the moment. Carved from a single massive crystal deep within an asteroid, its walls shimmered with the light of 1,000,000 stars. But today, those walls seemed to absorb the tension in the room, darkening slightly as if responding to the collective anxiety of its occupants. Honorable council members, Tay-Rim began, her voice steadied despite her nervousness. I have spent the last 12 hours reviewing our complete historical records of human technological development. What I found is disturbing. She gestured, and holographic displays materialized around the chamber, showing Earth's progression through the ages. Look at this timeline, she continued, highlighting key points in humanity's development. From their first radio signals to their mastery of quantum computing took less than 500 years. For comparison, the Xin civilization took 12,000 years to achieve the same advancement. The Mera needed 8,000. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as the implications sank in. Ambassador Yang Min-Ki rose from his seat, his ancient eyes reflecting the starlight. If I may add to the chief historian's report, he said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of diplomatic experience. During my tenure as ambassador to Earth, I witnessed their response to limitations firsthand. Min-Ki activated his own display, showing footage from various human achievements. When told something was impossible, they didn't accept it. They questioned our basic assumptions about reality itself. When we said faster-than-light travel required massive energy sources, they developed micro-singularity drives. When we claimed consciousness couldn't be digitized, they created the first mind transfer protocols. The chamber erupted in concerned whispers as Min-Ki continued. Their determination wasn't just impressive, it was unprecedented. They approached every obstacle not as a barrier, but as a puzzle to be solved. Tay-Rim highlighted another section of her data. Look at their learning curve. Every advancement they made built exponentially on previous discoveries. They didn't just climb the technological ladder, they rebuilt it entirely as they went, creating new paths we never imagined possible. A representative from the ancient Krell civilization raised a tentacle. Are you suggesting they planned this? This evolution? The evidence suggests exactly that, Tay-Rim replied, bringing up new displays. Their scientific papers, their entertainment media, their philosophical discussions, all of them centered around transcendence, evolution, and breaking free from physical limitations. We dismissed it as primitive speculation, but they were documenting their roadmap to ascension. Min-Ki shared his own records. Their fiction often became their reality. They imagined something impossible, then found ways to make it possible. We thought they were merely dreaming. They were planning. The council chamber grew darker as the implications became clear. Humanity hadn't vanished in defeat or fled in fear. They had achieved something that the oldest civilizations in the galaxy had never even attempted. There's more, Tay-Rim said quietly, saving her most significant finding for last. In the weeks before their disappearance, human quantum researchers published papers on dimensional transcendence. We dismissed them as theoretical physics, but look at these energy readings from Earth's final days. The display showed massive energy spikes across the planet, perfectly synchronized. They weren't building weapons or defenses. They were building doorways to higher dimensions of existence. The silence we're witnessing isn't a tragedy. It's a graduation ceremony. The council chamber erupted in chaos as species both ancient and young grappled with the implications. Humanity, the youngest of spacefaring races, had not just caught up to the galaxy's oldest civilizations, they had surpassed them all, charting a course into realms of existence that others had never dared to explore. As the council members argued and debated, Tyrim and Minki shared a knowing look. They had both spent years studying humanity, and somehow, this outcome didn't surprise them. Humans had always refused to accept limitations, always pushed beyond what seemed possible. Their silence wasn't an end, it was a beginning, and the galaxy would never be the same. The question now wasn't what had happened to humanity, but what would happen next. They had evolved beyond the physical realm, but to what purpose? The galaxy held its breath, waiting to discover what it meant to have an entire species transcend to a higher plane of existence. As the emergency session continued long into the night, one thing became crystal clear. The silence of Earth wasn't a moment of loss, but a herald of change that would echo through the cosmos forever. The Arcturus monitoring station hung silently in the void, its sensors probing the depths of space for any sign of unusual activity. Officer Choi Sun-woo sat at his monitoring station, his eyes growing tired after 12 hours of watching endless streams of data flow across his screens. The station's massive detection arrays were the most sensitive in this sector of space, capable of detecting the smallest fluctuations in the fabric of reality. The first anomaly appeared as nothing more than a tiny blip, barely noticeable among the constant flow of cosmic background radiation. Sun-woo might have missed it entirely if he hadn't been looking at exactly the right moment. But there it was, a pattern he'd seen before years ago, in human quantum transmission signatures. "Station, this is Officer Choi." He spoke into his comm unit, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'm detecting unusual energy patterns in Sector 7. Request verification." The station's quantum computers began analyzing the data, comparing it to known patterns in their vast database. As more readings came in, Sun-woo's hands began to shake. The energy signature was unlike anything in their records, yet it carried unmistakable elements of human design. Chief Scientist Kang Hin-nul arrived at the monitoring station within minutes, her usually neat appearance slightly disheveled from rushing from her quarters. She took one look at the readings and immediately ordered a full spectrum analysis. "These patterns," she muttered, more to herself than to Sun-woo, "they're similar to human quantum signatures, but the energy levels are off the scale. It's as if they found a way to tap into the fundamental forces of the universe itself." More anomalies began appearing in other sectors. Each one carried the same basic pattern, a mixture of familiar human design elements combined with energy signatures that shouldn't be possible according to known physics. Hin-nul's fingers flew across the control panel, bringing up comparative analyses. "Look at this," she pointed to a particular set of readings. "These energy fluctuations suggest they're not just manipulating space, they're manipulating the barriers between dimensions. They found a way to exist in multiple planes of reality simultaneously." The monitoring station's alert level increased as more data poured in. Similar reports began arriving from other monitoring stations across the galaxy. The patterns were appearing everywhere, like ripples in the cosmic fabric. "They didn't just disappear," Hin-nul said, her voice filled with awe and a touch of fear. "They evolved beyond the constraints of physical space. They've become something our instruments can barely detect." Sun-woo watched as new anomalies appeared on his screens. "But how is this possible? Even our most advanced species haven't managed to breach dimensional barriers." "Because we've been thinking about it wrong," Hin-nul replied, pulling up historical data from Earth's final days. "We assumed dimensional travel required brute force, massive amounts of energy to tear holes in reality. But look at these patterns. They're not tearing anything. They're dancing between the spaces that already exist. The station's quantum computers struggled to process the flood of new data as more signatures appeared. Each one showed the same impossible combination. Human ingenuity merged with power beyond current scientific understanding. Emergency messages began pouring in from across the galaxy. Other monitoring stations were detecting similar phenomena, each bearing the unmistakable mark of human design. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just achieved dimensional travel, they had mastered it. They're everywhere and nowhere, Haynul whispered, watching as new signatures bloomed across their detection grid. They found a way to exist in the spaces between spaces, in realms we can barely comprehend. The revelation sent shockwaves through galactic civilization. Reports flooded in from every sector of space as more monitoring stations detected the impossible signatures. Humanity hadn't fled or fallen. They had transcended the very boundaries of reality itself. As Sunwoo and Haynul continued to monitor the growing number of anomalies, they couldn't help but wonder what this meant for the future of the galaxy. Humanity had achieved what countless civilizations had dreamed of for millennia. They had broken free from the constraints of normal spacetime, becoming something entirely new. The question that haunted everyone wasn't just where humanity had gone, but what they had become. These energy signatures were just echoes, footprints left behind by beings who now walked between the very fabric of reality itself. As the Arcturus station continued its vigilant watch, one thing became increasingly clear: the galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity's evolution had opened doors that could never be closed, and the cosmos itself held its breath, waiting to see what would emerge from this unprecedented transformation. Song Minhee's research vessel drifted through the debris field that had once been a human space station. Her team had spent weeks examining abandoned human installations across the solar system, but this discovery changed everything. What they had initially dismissed as destroyed equipment was actually something far more significant. "Look at these energy readings again," Minhee said to her team, pointing at the holographic display floating in the ship's main laboratory. "We thought these were just random fluctuations in the background radiation, but they're not random at all. They're doorways." The laboratory hummed with the sound of advanced scanning equipment as her team worked to understand what they were seeing. The seemingly empty space around them was anything but empty. Their most sensitive instruments detected massive structures existing just out of phase with normal spacetime, hidden in folds of reality that most species couldn't even perceive. The humans didn't just leave. Minhee explained, manipulating the holographic display to show the true scope of their discovery. They built an entire civilization in subspace, right under our noses. We've been looking at it for years without understanding what we were seeing. Her senior analyst, Park Jin-ho, pulled up historical data from Earth's final decades. "Look at these construction patterns," he said, highlighting various human engineering projects. "We thought they were building standard orbital platforms and lunar bases, but these weren't just space stations. They were anchor points for their dimensional infrastructure." The evidence was overwhelming once they knew what to look for. Humanity had spent generations preparing for their transcendence, building vast networks of installations that existed partially in normal space and partially in higher dimensions. The technology required to achieve this was far beyond anything the galactic community had thought possible. Minhee's findings were presented to an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The massive council chamber fell silent as she revealed the true extent of human achievement. Every technological breakthrough they made was leading to this moment, she explained, showing how seemingly unrelated advances in quantum mechanics, consciousness transfer, and energy manipulation had all been pieces of a larger puzzle. Their quantum computer networks weren't just for data processing, she continued, bringing up detailed scans of abandoned Earth facilities. They were mapping the boundaries between dimensions, finding natural weak points in the fabric of spacetime. Their consciousness research wasn't about artificial intelligence. It was about preparing their minds for existence in higher dimensions. The council members watched in stunned silence as Minhee's team reconstructed humanity's great project. The humans had built their ascension engine in plain sight, disguising it as normal technological development. Each breakthrough had brought them closer to their goal, while other species watched without comprehending the true significance. The dimensional folds we've detected are just the surface, Minhee explained. Our instruments can barely detect the outer edges of what they've built. The actual scope of their achievement may be beyond our ability to measure. One council member, an ancient being from a highly advanced civilization, spoke up. Are you saying they achieved this level of development without any outside assistance, without even revealing their true intentions? Minhee nodded. They didn't just achieve it. They surpassed anything we thought possible. While we were watching for traditional signs of advancement, weapons, shields, faster ships, they were quietly mastering the fundamental forces of reality itself. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just disappeared. They had evolved beyond the physical constraints that bound other species to normal space-time. They now existed in a realm that most civilizations couldn't even properly perceive, let alone reach. As Minhee concluded her presentation, she shared one final discovery. We found this message encoded in the quantum signature of one of their installations, she said, displaying the text for all to see. The door is open. We will wait until you are ready to join us. The council chamber erupted in discussion as species both ancient and young grappled with this revelation. Humanity hadn't abandoned the galaxy. They had blazed a trail for others to follow, once they were advanced enough to understand the path. Minhee's team continued their research, knowing that they had only begun to understand the true scope of human achievement. The silent installations scattered throughout space were more than just remnants of a departed civilization. They were guideposts pointing the way to humanity's new existence in the higher dimensions. The galaxy would never be the same, as every species now had to confront the reality that what they had thought impossible had already been achieved. Humanity's great silence wasn't an ending. It was an invitation to follow them into a new stage of existence, when the rest of the galaxy was ready to make the journey. Han Jiwu spent countless hours in the vast archives, surrounded by holographic displays showing decades of human scientific advancement. The soft blue light from the displays cast shadows across her tired face as she uncovered pattern after pattern that everyone had somehow missed. The truth had been there all along, hidden in plain sight. Computer, show me the progression of human quantum research again, she commanded, her voice barely a whisper in the quiet archive chamber. The displays shifted, showing a timeline that spanned nearly a century of human development. What had seemed like random breakthroughs now revealed themselves as carefully planned steps. Cross-reference with dimensional physics papers, she added, watching as new connections formed in the holographic web before her. The pattern was so clear now that she wondered how they had all been so blind. Each human discovery had built upon the last in a careful sequence, leading to an inevitable conclusion. Jiwu prepared her findings for presentation to the Historical Review Committee. The committee chamber was packed with representatives from the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, all eager to understand how they had missed the signs of humanity's true development. Look at this, Jiwu began, projecting the complex web of human research. We thought their breakthroughs were random, driven by necessity or chance. We were wrong. Every step was calculated, each discovery deliberately timed to mask their true progress. She highlighted a series of human research papers on quantum mechanics. When they published these findings, we dismissed them as primitive attempts to understand basic quantum principles. But look closer. The display zoomed in on specific equations buried deep within the research. They weren't learning the basics. They were mapping quantum pathways between dimensions. The chamber fell silent as Jiwu continued her presentation. Their work on consciousness transfer wasn't about artificial intelligence or digital immortality. They were preparing their minds for existence in higher dimensions. Each experiment, each test, was designed to understand how human consciousness could survive outside normal spacetime. One of the elder committee members, a being whose species had mastered space travel while humans were still hunting with spears, spoke up. "Are you suggesting they deceived us deliberately?" Jiawu shook her head. "Not deception. Misdirection. They showed us exactly what they were doing, but presented it in a way that we would underestimate its significance. Look at their entertainment media." She pulled up clips from human movies and television shows. They literally told stories about transcending physical form, about evolving beyond normal space. We thought it was fiction. They were announcing their intentions. The evidence continued to mount as Jiwu revealed more connections. Human experiments in dimensional physics had been disguised as attempts to improve space travel. Their breakthroughs in energy manipulation had been presented as advancements in power generation. Every step toward transcendence had been carefully packaged to appear less significant than it truly was. What's most remarkable, Jiwu continued, is their patience. They could have revealed their true capabilities years ago, but they waited. They refined their understanding, perfected their methods, and prepared their entire species for the transformation. The displays showed the final years of human development, where the patterns became almost impossible to ignore. Energy signatures that defied known physics, consciousness experiments that pushed the boundaries of reality, and quantum calculations that mapped paths between dimensions. We thought we were watching a young species take its first steps into advanced science, Jiwu concluded. Instead, we were witnessing a carefully choreographed ascension program. What looked like technological infancy was actually purposeful restraint. The committee chamber erupted in discussion as the implications became clear. The humans hadn't just achieved transcendence, they had planned it meticulously, testing and preparing every aspect before taking their final step into higher dimensions. As the meeting continued, Jiwu pulled up one final piece of evidence, a simple research paper published by human scientists just days before their disappearance. What had seemed like theoretical physics now read like an instruction manual for dimensional transcendence. "They left this for us," she explained, "not just as a record of their achievement, but as a roadmap for others to follow. They're waiting to see which species will be the first to understand what they've done and follow their path." The galaxy's most powerful civilizations had to face an uncomfortable truth. They hadn't just underestimated human potential, they had fundamentally misunderstood human nature. What they had dismissed as primitive development had been an elaborate performance, masking one of the greatest achievements in the history of the cosmos. As Jiwu gathered her research materials, she couldn't help but smile at the elegance of humanity's plan. They had hidden their greatest achievement in plain sight, counting on the galaxy's tendency to underestimate them. Now they waited in the higher dimensions, watching to see who would be clever enough to follow their lead. Captain Nam Yoon-suk stood at the observation window of Outpost Station 7, watching as the massive Kaith invasion fleet approached Earth's orbit. 500 warships, each bristling with weapons that could shatter continents, moved with predatory grace through the darkness of space. "This is foolish," Yoon-suk muttered to his second-in-command. The Council explicitly declared Earth off-limits for study, but the Kaith Dominion had never been known for their respect of Council directives. They saw Earth's apparent abandonment as an opportunity to claim humanity's homeworld for themselves. The outpost's sensors recorded everything as the Kaith fleet moved into attack formation. Their ships spread out in a classic invasion pattern, preparing to establish orbital dominance before beginning their ground assault. The fleet's communication channels buzzed with confident chatter about easy victory and rich spoils. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Park from the sensor station, "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from Earth's surface." The holographic displays showed ripples of power unlike anything in their database, emanating from points all around the planet. Yoon-suk watched as the first line of Kaith ships crossed the outer defense perimeter. For a moment, nothing happened. Then reality itself seemed to hiccup. There was no explosion, no weapons fire, no dramatic battle. The front line of Kaith ships simply vanished, as if they had never existed. One moment they were there, the next, Nothing but empty space. The remaining Caith vessels halted their advance, clearly confused by what had just happened. Their commanders had expected to find an abandoned planet with perhaps some automated defenses. Instead, they had encountered something that defied explanation. "Full sensor sweep," Yoon-suk ordered, his voice steady despite his shock. "What just happened to those ships?" The answer came back moments later. Nothing. No debris, no energy signatures, no distress signals. Nearly 100 warships and their crews had simply ceased to exist. The evidence continued to mount as Ji-woo revealed more connections. Human experiments in dimensional physics had been disguised as attempts to improve space travel. Their breakthroughs in energy manipulation had been presented as advancements in power generation. Every step toward transcendence had been carefully packaged to appear less significant than it truly was. What's most remarkable, Ji-woo continued, is their patience. They could have revealed their true capabilities years ago, but they waited. They refined their understanding, perfected their methods, and prepared their entire species for the transformation. The displays showed the final years of human development, where the patterns became almost impossible to ignore. Energy signatures that defied known physics, consciousness experiments that pushed the boundaries of reality, and quantum calculations that mapped paths between dimensions. We thought we were watching a young species take its first steps into advanced science, Ji-woo concluded. Instead, we were witnessing a carefully choreographed ascension program. What looked like technological infancy was actually purposeful restraint. The committee chamber erupted in discussion as the implications became clear. The humans hadn't just achieved transcendence, they had planned it meticulously, testing and preparing every aspect before taking their final step into higher dimensions. As the meeting continued, Ji-woo pulled up one final piece of evidence, a simple research paper published by human scientists just days before their disappearance. What had seemed like theoretical physics now read like an instruction manual for dimensional transcendence. "They left this for us," she explained, "not just as a record of their achievement, but as a roadmap for others to follow. They're waiting to see which species will be the first to understand what they've done and follow their path." The galaxy's most powerful civilizations had to face an uncomfortable truth. They hadn't just underestimated human potential, they had fundamentally misunderstood human nature. What they had dismissed as primitive development had been an elaborate performance, masking one of the greatest achievements in the history of the cosmos. As Ji-woo gathered her research materials, she couldn't help but smile at the elegance of humanity's plan. They had hidden their greatest achievement in plain sight, counting on the galaxy's tendency to underestimate them. Now they waited in the higher dimensions, watching to see who would be clever enough to follow their lead. Captain Nam Yoon-suk stood at the observation window of Outpost Station 7, watching as the massive Caith invasion fleet approached Earth's orbit. 500 warships, each bristling with weapons that could shatter continents, moved with predatory grace through the darkness of space. "This is foolish," Yoon-suk muttered to his second-in-command. The Council explicitly declared Earth off-limits for study. But the Caith Dominion had never been known for their respect of Council directives. They saw Earth's apparent abandonment as an opportunity to claim humanity's homeworld for themselves. The outpost's sensors recorded everything as the Caith fleet moved into attack formation. Their ships spread out in a classic invasion pattern, preparing to establish orbital dominance before beginning their ground assault. The fleet's communication channels buzzed with confident chatter about easy victory and rich spoils. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Park from the sensor station, "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from Earth's surface." The holographic displays showed ripples of power unlike anything in their database, emanating from points all around the planet. Yoon-suk watched as the first line of Caith ships crossed the outer defense perimeter. For a moment, nothing happened. Then reality itself seemed to hiccup. There was no explosion, no weapons fire, no dramatic battle. The front line of Caith ships simply vanished, as if they had never existed. One moment they were there, the next, nothing but empty space. The remaining Caith vessels halted their advance, clearly confused by what had just happened. Their commanders had expected to find an abandoned planet with perhaps some automated defenses. Instead, they had encountered something that defied explanation. "Full sensor sweep," Yumsuk ordered, his voice steady despite his shock. "What just happened to those ships?" The answer came back moments later. Nothing. No debris, no energy signatures, no distress signals. Nearly 100 warships and their crews had simply ceased to exist. Su Jin worked tirelessly to analyze the transmission method. The message wasn't being broadcast. It was simply existing, everywhere at once, as if the humans had found a way to speak through reality itself. In the Galactic Council chambers, President Yoon Da-hyun called for calm as representatives from thousands of worlds tried to understand the implications. Humanity hadn't just evolved. They had transcended in ways that challenged the very foundations of what was thought possible. "This is not a farewell," the message proceeded. "It is an invitation. The cosmos is vast enough for all forms of existence. We remain watchful, not as conquerors, but as guardians. Each species must find its own path to understanding, but know that you are not alone in your journey." Scientists across the galaxy worked to understand how humans had achieved their transformation. They studied the quantum signatures left behind, the subtle traces of higher dimensional engineering that pervaded Earth's solar system. But understanding the mechanics of humanity's ascension was like trying to explain color to a being that could only see in black and white. "We will wait," the message concluded, "until you are ready to join us. The path is open to all who learn to see it." President Yoon spent hours in his private chambers, recording his thoughts in his journal. The galaxy was changing, adjusting to a new reality where humanity had become something akin to gods, yet chose to remain silent guardians rather than conquerors. "We feared their silence," he wrote, only to discover it was the sound of ascension. Humanity didn't disappear. They simply learned to speak in ways we're still trying to understand. Earth stood as a monument to their achievement, a reminder that evolution knew no bounds. The planet continued its quiet orbit around its star, protected by technologies that operated on principles beyond current scientific understanding. The galaxy entered a new age of exploration and discovery. Species that had once competed for resources and territory now worked together, inspired by humanity's example. The knowledge that they were being watched over, not by conquerors but by guardians who had once been like them, changed everything. Su Jin never left her quantum communications lab, dedicated to understanding the methods humanity had used to transmit their message. She knew she might spend her entire life studying what they had achieved without fully comprehending it. But that was okay. The humans had shown that understanding would come to those who were ready for it. As the years passed, occasional whispers would emerge from the quantum field, gentle reminders that humanity was still watching, still protecting, still waiting for others to join them in their higher state of existence. They had become living proof that evolution had no endpoint, that consciousness could expand beyond the boundaries of normal space and time. The cosmos continued its eternal dance, but now with the knowledge that something greater was watching, waiting, protecting. Humanity's silence had become a symphony of possibility, a reminder that every species had the potential to transcend their current limitations and evolve into something more. The journey had only just begun.